Today, I want to introduce you to the idea of neurological levels. This is a concept pioneered by Robert Dilts back in the early days of NLP, but somehow it seems to have been overlooked in a lot of modern NLP training. Some schools of NLP still include it and spend a lot of time using it, but others have disregarded it. So if you haven't come across this model before, I really encourage you to explore it in more detail. The notion of neurological levels is that it's a way of distinguishing which part of somebody's experience they're currently paying attention to. So the model has 5 or sometimes 6 levels, depending on which version you look at. And generally we begin at the bottom of the model and work upwards. So the lowest level is the level of environment. So this answers questions like where and when. That's telling us about the context in which something is happening. The next level up is behaviour. That's simple. That's about what are people doing, what activity is taking place. And that answers questions about what is going on. Often, that's the area that most people are interested in sort of everyday conversations. That's the kind of thing that people usually ask each other about, what's happening. Moving up the model from there, the third level up is the level of capability. So this is all about skills and it's about strategy. It tells us how whatever is going on is actually happening. Now that's quite different from looking at behaviour, because the behaviour is the end result of the capability. So in order to do something, somebody has to have a skill that produces that behaviour. Moving up from there, the fourth level up is the level of values and beliefs. So this is often outside of a person's conscious awareness. Often we don't really know what we believe in a situation. We're not always completely clear about our values. But nonetheless, this is a very powerful area of our experience because the combination of beliefs and values also drive behaviour. So the beliefs and values level answers questions about why somebody is doing what they're doing. It's about personal motivation. Above that, we've then got the fifth level, which is the level of identity. This is about who's doing what, and why, and how, and so on. Now, this can be fairly straightforward in terms of, who is that person, and we can give a person a name. But also, it's quite subtle, because everybody has their own unique sense of self. Who you think you are ties into what you will then do or why you will do it. Things that you wouldn't do all come from your sense of self. And that can be hard to put into words. It's quite difficult to pin down. For a lot of people, it's more of an emotional experience. It's a feeling they have about who they are. Nonetheless, it's very, very powerful. Because if you're asked to do something that goes against who you think you are, it's going to be really hard for you to do that. Now, beyond that, we have a level that's called beyond identity. Sometimes it's known as a spiritual level, but I think it's more useful and more general just to think of it as beyond identity, because that's where we're thinking about ourselves as part of something that's bigger than just myself. So when you think about yourself as part of a team or part of a community, part of your family, and yes, it could be in a spiritual sense that you're thinking about yourself as being part of something much greater. What that does is it takes the focus away from self and puts us in a different kind of context. So I said at the beginning that the environment level, the very bottom level, is about context, but also when we get right to the top, we're providing a different kind of context. Now, lots of people have seen this model and kind of shrugged their shoulders and said, OK, so what? The place it really comes in useful is when you've got problem solving to do. Because one of the simplest things you can do if you've got a problem to solve is to, first of all, identify which neurological level is the problem represented at. And then to solve the problem, all you need to do is go to a different level. I'll give you an example. Suppose a friend comes to visit you and they bring their Labrador puppy as well. Now, whether or not you're a dog lover, having a Labrador puppy in your house could be quite a traumatic experience, especially if it's not yet completed its puppy training. So here you are, you've got a dog running around the house, threatening your favourite ornaments, maybe your carpet or whatever else that happens to be in the line of sight. What's the problem there? Well, the problem is the dog's behaviour. So the dog's running around, it's out of control. You could say that's the problem. Okay, so let's go to a different neurological level, because if we stay at the same neurological level, the only change we could make is to try and change the dog's behaviour. Well, if the puppy hasn't completed its puppy training, changing its behaviour might be quite hard. So let's change, for example, the environment. What does that mean? Well, take it outside into the garden or take it for a walk in the park. The dog carries on doing the same thing it's been doing. It runs around, barks, makes a noise, jumps up and down, whatever else. It's not a problem in a different environment. Now, you may say that's common sense, and that's, what's the point of that? I tell you that just as a trivial example to say, by shifting neurological levels, the solution to the problem becomes obvious. We could also go to a higher level. So suppose you've got an important presentation to make to the board, and you're practicing doing it, and it's not working out the way you want it to, and you're thinking to yourself, I'm not going to get the result I'm looking for. What do you do? Well, changing environment there probably isn't going to help. You're probably going to have to go further up the neurological levels. So you might go to the level of skill and capability and say to yourself, okay, so what is it that I need to learn to do that I'm currently not doing very well? So it might be a question of just calling in an expert and getting a little bit of extra help. Or it might be, yes, you have all the capability because you've made this kind of presentation before to different audiences, but it might be that the problem actually stems at the level of values and beliefs. It could be that you're making yourself nervous just by saying things to yourself like, oh, they won't listen to me, or I'm not important enough, or I'm not significant enough, I haven't got enough clout, or those kinds of things are beliefs. And so by making a change at that level, you take away the block, and then you might be able to do a much better job. So can you see how by addressing the problem at a different neurological level, it actually becomes so much easier? Because what you're changing is something different rather than directly trying to change the thing that's causing the problem. So that's a potted version of neurological levels. There are also a lot of NLP techniques that flow from that can be used, for example, to align your thinking and your behaviour with your environment, with your identity and so on, to make sure that you really are walking your talk. But I think for today, it's enough just to give you the opportunity to think that through. And next time you have a problem to solve, see if you can do it just by shifting to a different neurological level.